Welcome to Menopause and Miracles, the podcast where we have honest conversations about the beautiful, messy, and miraculous journey of midlife. And this is the place where we navigate life's unexpected twists with courage, rediscover who we're becoming, and learn to trust ourselves enough to stop living in the maybe and start embracing a wholehearted yes. I'm Suzanne, your host and your midlife wingwoman, here to walk alongside you as you step into your next chapter with more confidence, more clarity, and the courage to go all in on the life that's calling you. Because sometimes the biggest transformation doesn't begin with a giant leap. It begins with one decision to stop holding yourself back. And if you've ever felt like you're standing at the edge of a decision, wondering if you're ready, waiting for certainty, or hoping for the right time, this episode is for you. This is episode 60, Why Midlife Women Go All In, the shift from maybe to yes. Well, happy Monday, and I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are. Summer is here, and I really hope you're keeping cool, whether that's by the pool, a big fan in front of you, or a nice iced something, ice cold drink. So today we are talking about how, midlife women, we are navigating reinvention, dating, marriage, empty nesting, sometimes both. Then there's menopause, aging parents, our shifting identity as well. And going all in isn't about taking bigger risks. It's finally giving ourselves full permission. And after years investing in everyone else's dreams, expectations, or needs, midlife becomes the invitation to invest completely in your own. Because this chapter isn't about playing it safe, it's about trusting yourself enough to choose the life you've been quietly longing to live. So let's talk about why so many women in midlife stop living in the maybe and finally start saying yes. So midlife is when women stop hedging. And I love to say we stop hedging our bets even. So in our 20s and 30s, many women are rewarded for this keeping options open, pleasing others, making safe decisions. And I know you might think safe decisions are more for maybe an older person's game, but I think, in your 20s and 30s, there's still that list of things that, kind of society or your parents or whether it's your own, environment that's pushing you towards, get the education, get the career, get married, have a family. So just that's where I feel the playing safe, meaning the decisions, even then, are not necessarily all your own. And by midlife, many discover something unexpected, which is the cost of half committing becomes greater than the risk of fully committing. So suddenly it's leaving the marriage, starting the business, going back to school, moving across the country, traveling solo, saying yes to love again, saying no to everyone else. It's really less about becoming reckless and more about becoming decisive. And I don't know about you, but in midlife, I cannot stand to be in what I call limbo anymore, that in between of making a decision, like I'm waiting for someone else's input or permission, but I no longer need to. And did I ever really, once you become an adult? It's taken me some time to realize that a yes to myself is equal to the yes by anyone else, or the combination of a group of yeses. My yes to myself is valid, honorable, smart, valued, and so on. Fill in the blank. So, you realize time is no longer this theoretical. Again, there's always one word in my podcast where I just mess it up, mash it up. So you realize time is no longer theoretical, right? So one of the biggest mindset shifts for women 45 to 60 is this increased awareness of finite time. So not in a depressing way, but more like, wow. And I know I say this, if not now, when? Have you noticed that birthdays start feeling a little different? Instead of counting candles, you may begin counting opportunities, not because life is necessarily ending, but because you realize, I know I do, that my time matters. It has just a different price tag or cost or value, whichever resonates with you. And, based on his personal philosophy and calculations, I first heard kind of this reference from Jesse Itzler, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Jesse. He references this as he frequently points out that, let's say in your 50s, he's now 57, that the average American lifespan is about 78 years. And so because of this, he's calculated that he has approximately 21 to 28 summers left, depending on where he runs the numbers to live full throttle. So you can look him up. He's created some amazing businesses, done some amazing things, and one of them that I think is marrying the creator of Spanx, Sarah Blakely. So just check him out if you are someone who loves to Google, Instagram, all those things. So imagine though, 21 to 28 summers or birthdays or holidays. You may still think that's a good amount, but how does your view change when it starts to fall into the teens and then the single digits, right? So that's kind of how time works. So psychologists refer to this as our shift from basically accumulation to meaning, where in midlife, instead of asking, what should I build? Women begin asking, what actually matters to me now? And that would be summers, birthdays. What are the things that are important to you each year? And that question fuels all in. In menopause, menopause changes more than just our hormones, as we know. Many women describe menopause as reducing their tolerance for things that drain them. And OMG, I can attest to this. Can you? I'm sure there's many hands, amens, all the things on a yes on the other side of this podcast. Whether it's hormonal, neurological, emotional, or simply years of experience, we often notice that our tolerance is less for people pleasing, lower tolerance for drama, greater desire for authenticity, stronger boundaries, willingness to disappoint others, and so on. And so some may even coin this as, or call this, the great unfiltering. And I love that, because I know I do. I don't know about you, but I beat myself up when I'm like, why all of a sudden am I becoming more critical, judgmental, controlling, when it's really that my tolerance levels And my desires, let's say for authenticity or stronger boundaries, like everything's shifting. And it's kind of like behind the scenes, but then sometimes in front of you, and you're like, wow, is this me? Because I wasn't like this before. But I do love the great unfiltering. We are coming into our truth. We're living more authentically. What used to feel selfish begins to feel necessary. And I actually think this is one of the deepest truths about midlife. And it's something many women feel before, as I just was expressing, before they can put it into words. As far as, because I know in midlife and menopause, we get a lot of what's happening. So when we're younger, we're often conditioned, especially as women, to believe that choosing ourselves is selfish. Taking time away from our family, selfish. Spending money on ourselves, selfish. Saying no, selfish. Changing careers, selfish. Leaving a relationship that no longer fits because I don't know what, a reason, our reasoning isn't enough, selfish. Taking a solo trip, selfish. But who says so? Really, who decided that taking care of yourself was selfish? Somewhere along the way, many of us have inherited a definition of being a good woman. That meant everyone else came first. And many women spend decades being so dependable, or the dependable one, the caregiver, the peacemaker, the planner, the one who remembers birthdays, schedules appointments, checks in on everyone, and puts their own needs at the bottom of the list. And then something shifts in midlife. You begin to realize that by constantly putting yourself last, it hasn't made you happier, healthier, or more fulfilled. In fact, it may have left you exhausted, resentful, disconnected from yourself, or wondering where you went. And what I love about midlife is the discovery of how that happened, right? Because at first I feel like you have those feelings like, why do I feel disconnected from myself? Why do I feel exhausted? Why do I feel resentful? And we just look to ourselves for our answers because we look to ourselves for answers for everyone else, right? But then where I shift that is to, oh, what choices have I been making? What decisions have I been taking? And that's when what once felt selfish begins to feel really necessary. Necessary because you can't pour from an empty cup forever. You deserve a life that includes you. Your dreams aren't less important because you spent years supporting everyone else's. And choosing yourself isn't about abandoning others. It's finally including yourself in the equation. And I also think menopause plays a very interesting role as hormones change and life experience accumulates. Many women report having less tolerance for people pleasing and more desire to live authentically. Amen to that. It's almost as if your inner compass gets louder while your need for the external approval gets quieter. And midlife becomes this season of subtraction before addition. So, changing that maybe to yes. There's this shift or season that happens where before women go all in on something new, they often go all out of something old. So they stop pretending, stop shrinking, stop over explaining themselves, stop waiting That's my favorite. Stop chasing approval. Well, they all are. Stop chasing approval. Stop living someone else's definition of success. Going all in often begins clearing where you've been, going all out. And confidence isn't what makes women necessarily go all in. I think this might surprise most people, even ourselves, that many women don't leap because they're confident. They leap because staying the same is finally hurting more than changing. So courage usually arrives first to change, and the confidence catches up later. And I know many of us may think the other way around, right? You got to have the confidence to do this, but just having a little mustard seed of courage. And this identity shift that we have in midlife is bigger than the action. Starting a business isn't really about starting a business. Dating, again, isn't really about dating. Leaving corporate isn't just leaving a job. Each decision says, I'm becoming someone who trusts herself. And that's why, again, going all in can feel at times emotional or bring up feelings, grieving. You're not just changing your circumstances, you're rewriting your identity. And, I know this weekend I spent a good amount of time with my coach. And yes, coaches have coaches, and I love to remain open, teachable, coachable. It's with a group of other entrepreneurs, and I was doing things that I hadn't done before. And I'm just at a place where when I make a decision to go all in on myself, I have to trust the process. I have to trust what I don't know. I have to trust what I know. And I have to trust that everything's going to be okay and everything's going to work out. Because again, once you hit midlife, you've gone through some things. You've made decisions. You have bounced back. You've been resilient. You understand that if you're knocked down, you can get back up. If you don't understand something, you'll figure it out. And so that's a great gift of midlife. And so anyway, that's, rewriting your identity. I think that's where I was going with that, is that some of yours may look like, this huge investment, and others may look like, I'm becoming an empty nester. And it looks different for everyone, but really we're all going through the same thing is what I'm trying to get at. So going all in doesn't mean doing everything. And this is it's such an important distinction for us as women, right? Many women, you might hear go all in and picture, ooh, hustle culture. And in midlife, all in often looks quieter. It means being fully present instead of spread thin, choosing one dream instead of 10, which become more like distractions, saying a wholehearted yes instead of a dozen reluctant maybes. It's a depth over breadth. The younger version of you wanted certainty before commitment. The midlife version of you discovers commitment creates certainty. And that totally flips the script, right? You don't become certain and then go all in. You become certain because you finally decide to go all in. And I love that. And if you embrace that, you'll understand what I'm saying. There's just such power in that decision making. Going all in often begins with making room. Before you can say yes to the life you want, you usually have to, again, say no to this life that is no longer yours, or that may be changing. So don't miss, it's a great segue, don't miss the opportunity to join me for my 1 hour midlife coaching session that speaks directly to this. Stop second guessing yourself. 5 shifts to finally trust your next decision, aka kind of going all in, where your maybes turn into yeses or no's. And it's completely free, and it's where you'll learn where you're hesitant in your own life and how to trust making a decision or decisions that line with this chapter. It is coming up Thursday, July 23rd this week, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can simply go to www.yourmidlifewingwoman.com to register, save your spot, add it to your calendar. Again, it's a free hour, and to get some good tools and understanding of yourself, maybe a little direction. Or you can always email me at yourmidlifewingwoman@gmail.com. So, ending today's podcast, where have you been living in the maybe? Is it your career, your health, a relationship, a dream you've been carrying for years? Because maybe it isn't a destination, it's a waiting room. So, midlife has this beautiful way of asking us different questions than it did 20 years ago. It isn't asking, can you do it? You've already proven, as we've talked about here, you have proven you can do hard things. It isn't asking, are you capable? You already know you are. The question midlife asks is much simpler. Will you finally choose yourself? And if you've been living in maybe, wondering if the timing is right, waiting for confidence, or hoping for a sign, consider this episode your sign. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. Going all in rarely begins with these giant leaps. Again, it begins with just maybe one honest yes. Maybe it's the phone call you've been avoiding. Maybe it's signing up for the class. Maybe it's leaving the relationship or having a conversation about it. Maybe it's applying for the job, booking the trip. Maybe it's simply asking for help, or believing that the next chapter of your life deserves much of your love and attention as you have given everyone else. Remember, going all in isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more of who you already are. The younger version of you waited for certainty before committing. The woman you are today knows something is different. Commitment creates the certainty. So wherever you've been living in the maybe, I hope today's conversation gives you the permission to take one small step towards a yes. Your next chapter isn't waiting for perfection. It's waiting for your decision. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to like, follow, or subscribe. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or a story about a moment when you finally went on all in on yourself, I would love to hear it. You can always reach me at yourmidlifewingwoman at gmail.com. And if you know another woman who's been living in the maybe, or waiting for the right time, the right sign, the right amount of confidence before she says yes to herself, please share this episode with her. You never know. This conversation might be the permission she's been waiting for. So until next time, remember, you don't have to have all the answers before you take that first step. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply saying yes to yourself. Your next chapter isn't waiting for perfection. Again, it's waiting for your decision. I'm Suzanne, your midlife wingwoman, and this has been Menopause and Miracles. Until next time, be well, and don't be afraid to go all in on the life that's waiting for you. Bye for now.